Hey everybody, welcome to the Mahoning Matters Sports Show. I'm Chris Pugh, the editor of Mahoning Matters, and I have Mike Brown, our sports writer. Mike, how are you doing?
Chris, I'm doing great as always.
Yeah, definitely. Busy week. We're in tournament season for
Yep,
high school baseball and softball.
yep,
We were just talking beforehand, lots of stuff going around in Mahoning Valley.
yep,
Mike also covers sports in other areas of Northeast Ohio, and
yep,
Mike's got a busy week there. So let's
yep.
kind of focus our attention more on Mahoning Valley and see how these teams are doing. Kind of an upset in baseball. Poland got knocked off by Ursuline.
Yeah,
I know this is our final rankings of the
yeah.
year
hmm
for baseball, softball, and how's our baseball rankings look?
Yeah, the baseball rankings, West Branch is back to number one this week. And, they I covered them on Monday night, Chris, and they have set a new school record with their 22nd win. They're 22-6, and they got a 1-0 district final or a district semifinal win over a really good Notre Dame Cathedral Latin team on Monday night. They'll play for a district championship in Division II on Wednesday at Louisville against the Geneva Eagles. I covered that game yesterday as well. Geneva came back and beat Salem 5-2. Salem was up 2-0 early, and Geneva rallied and won that game 5-2. So West Branch and Geneva will play for a district title at 5 o'clock on Wednesday at the Louisville Field of Dreams. So that should be a great matchup. And then we've got a bunch of other teams. Canfield, another team much alive in the district. Canfield's number 2 in our poll this week. They've won 12 of their past 14 games, and they've got some really quality wins over Howland, Alliance, and Poland during that time. And then number 3, South Range. There's another team that keeps winning. They've won 7 of their past 8. They're 17-8 overall. So those are the top teams in our baseball poll.
Yeah, I was wondering about this. Just random question. Bo Alzos was the guy that pitched really well for West
Yes,
Branch in the last game.
that's right.
Bo is a great quarterback for West Branch
Yeah,
too. Does that always? I mean, obviously, not every pitcher is a quarterback. There's sometimes guys don't go out for football and baseball teams.
right.
But is that a correlation? Like, if you're a good quarterback, could you be a good pitcher because you're throwing? I know it's a different arm motion and everything.
Right.
I was wondering about that.
You wouldn't think, but there is. It seems like it happens a lot. Where a lot of times your best athlete on your team is your quarterback, and so
Yeah.
it's just natural to expect that in baseball that guy's going to be a pretty good athlete as well. In Alizas's case, he was so good. He was offered by Lake Erie for football, and
Wow.
he's going for baseball. He's going to go to Walsh for baseball on a scholarship, and he's a good one. His ERA this year is under 1, Chris. He's
Yeah.
1. His ERA is under 1. That's pretty incredible this day and age with all these great offenses and things like that. To have a pitcher under 1 with an ERA of under 1, that's pretty incredible.
Well, I gotta give credit to West Branch too. You see so many schools, and I went to Louisville in high school, and even while I was at school, sometimes they kind of close the door on playing two sports. And
Yeah,
again, not sure what the situation with Alsace and West Branch is, but it's nice that they're letting them play both sports at least.
right. The word you hear is you have to share athletes. Today,
Yeah,
you really do. And if you listen to some of the pro athletes who've gone on to stardom at the highest level, they look back at their high school and they say, "I was a multi-sport athlete." And giving advice to these young athletes: play as many sports as you want to play in high school. Don't focus just on one. Enjoy, have some great memories of your high school athletic career. And so that's the pros saying that. So when they say that, I think that carries a lot of weight.
well, I get it. There's some random fear of, okay, if I'm a football star, what happens if I injure myself sliding
Right.
in baseball, whatever the
Yeah.
case may
Yeah.
be? And
Yep.
that's true, but I'll be honest, when I went to high school and some friends I had, everyone was like, "Oh, you'll be Big Ten or ACC," and nothing against some friends I have. They turned out to not be that great of high school players. So
Yeah.
yeah, there are circumstances in each high school where you might look at one or two guys and saying, "Hey, this is our cream of the crop. This is the guy that might go Division 1 or might play
Yeah.
high college ball."
Yeah.
But let's be honest, you got some other guys that are good players, good to be around, great to be in high school, but this is their chance of playing. So if you tell them, hey, you're going to only play one sport,
Right.
now, as you said, they got a lot less chance of enjoying their high school life. So
Right.
I,
Absolutely.
I get it. You got to be nervous. You don't want your star player to be injured playing a minor or a secondary sport.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, let the kid have fun because sometimes these guys that you think are going to be Division One end up either not wanting to go play or maybe not making it for whatever reason,
Right.
and you're taking away all the chances. So I guess that's my rant for today.
Yeah, no, I
So
agree. Make as many athletic memories as you can while you're in high school because, man, take it from me, it goes so fast. It was like another lifetime ago now for me, but man, enjoy as many sports, make as many memories as you can in high school because it goes so quickly.
yeah, and I talked to so many people that I know, everyone's got chances of doing something, but I've had friends that are like, "Oh, you're definitely going to Duke or North Carolina,"
Yeah,
and they end up not going. And I'm thinking,
right.
man, if I was in that situation as a kid, am I going to be disappointed growing up? Be
Mhm,
honest to your kids. And
right,
sometimes it's good to say, "Hey, you got 4 years of playing here. Hey, unless you go real small college, maybe it's not going to work in the college, but enjoy the time you have." I think so
right.
many times there's like this random, "Oh, you're going to play here, or maybe you'll go pro someday."
Yep.
Those don't happen that often. And
No,
and
they
just
don't.
be honest to the kids. They're going to enjoy their time anyway, even if they're not guaranteed to, be a one and done and go in the NBA draft. Come on,
You know what's
just
amazing about the perception out there for years, Chris, and still is out there, is that there's a lot of Division One college athletic scholarships available. It's minuscule of kids who get a Division One athletic scholarship. But on the flip side of that, there's a ton. I forget the percentage of, but it's much higher of kids who get an academic scholarship to
right.
Division One institutions. So, but the perception is just the opposite. But I think I saw the statistic somewhere where I believe it's less than 4% of high school athletes get D1 athletic college scholarship, but the perception is just the opposite.
Well, and I'll bring his name up because he was on a podcast with us where he said this. Uh, Antoine Gardner,
Yeah,
he's number one running back in the
yeah,
area.
hmm,
He put historic numbers. I mean, like Eddie
right,
George type numbers, where you're sitting there like, wow, every college in America is coming after him.
yeah,
When you look at the current NIL situation, sometimes you have to start small. And Antoine said it. I mean,
yeah,
he had Maine and Youngstown State, nothing against Youngstown State, but you're thinking of, man, why isn't every other Division One school in Ohio turning after him?
yeah,
And sometimes it's harder to find that scholarship, like he was telling us, and you have to work hard at your school, or maybe get a chance to go to a bigger school.
hmm,
It's so different. So I don't know. It just struck me as odd when you hear that sometimes. So
hmm,
props to West Branch and ball is awesome. Like I said, I don't know the situation. I'm sure West Branch needs the kids to play, but
yeah,
thank you, West Branch, for letting these kids do that. Yeah,
sure,
I'm
sure,
impressed with what they do.
yep,
Softball. Again, we always talk about the big. I'm thinking Big Four there in regionals, but we could
yeah,
probably say the Big Four team. But let's
yeah.
focus on these four teams that are doing really well in the regionals in softball.
Absolutely. Austin found Town Fitch, the defending Division One state champion. They are just rolling, Chris. They've won 15 straight games. They have outscored their past 8 opponents 96-1. Now think about that
Wow.
for a second. 96-1. It's like if you're an opponent playing Fitch, you think, why do we even go to the game? We have no chance to score a run. So, I'll be stunned if Fitch doesn't repeat as a D1 state champ. They've just been awesome with Sydney Watts in the circle. She's tremendous. So I think they're just going to keep winning. Same with Canfield in Division Two. They're 23-3. They've won 9 straight games. They've outscored their last few opponents 41-4. So you can tell these teams that have great pitchers. And if you have that, you can go a long way in softball. And the same thing with Warren Champion. They're number 3 in our softball poll this week. They've got Gabby Gratchar, another tremendous pitcher who's going D1 to college, and they're just rolling teams. So, and then you have South Range, who's really good too. They're still alive in the regional. Like you said, we've got 4 really good teams, probably more than that. But those 4 really stick out in the high school softball postseason.
I give credit to Canfield. I remember I was up to cover them losing late in the year to Louisville. Louisville's a good team, but
Yeah,
Canfield on paper is better. And
yeah,
it was funny after the game talking to the coach. It was kind of like, how do you learn from this? And he's like, yeah, that's exactly what we have to do. We learn from this. And
Right.
I think that was their last loss of the year. I mean, they've learned
Yeah,
from it.
it sure
They're back
was.
there dominating ways. And
And you know what's amazing about Canfield? I may have brought this up in a previous show. When the new divisions come out next year, they are going to be Division Four. Think about
right,
that. Canfield in Division Four. I know they're going to be Division Four in girls and boys basketball, and depending on how many divisions they have for depending on the sport, I think there'll be a four in softball and baseball too, and that's just for them. That is awesome because they're just
yeah.
under the threshold to be Division Three, and Canfield in Division Four. Starting next year will be scary. They'll be scary good. I mean, really, really, really good in everything.
Well, and we've talked about this before too, but I like looking in the softball tournament, and you've already seen this in sectionals and districts for these softball teams. I love the fact that these teams are playing outside their division. I mean,
Yeah,
Canfield and Fitch split a really good series.
they play out. Yeah, yep,
Canfield's 2, Fitch is 1.
yep,
You think that's got to help, Fitch as they prepare for the tournament,
yep.
and and also Canfield too. And you think about Canfield, that's why they're playing Louisville at Canfield.
Yep.
And I mean,
Yep.
you look at it and you say, okay, let's schedule some great teams from outside the area,
Yep.
and we learn from it. And again, unfortunately, Canfield lost that particular game,
Yeah.
but they're learning. And like the Canfield coach told me afterwards, just like, hey, if we have to lose, let's lose now, and let's don't lose in the tournament. So
I'll
I
tell you
think
what,
it's a
Chris.
good
I
thing.
would put the top three teams in our poll, our softball poll, up against any other area in the state. I think they're all that good. I really do, and it's proving out in the tournament already. You know, all three are in the regional, and I think they're just going to keep winning.
Well, we talk about, you talk about planning, and sometimes when you plan coverage, you might be lucky to have a sport with one team in the state
Right.
tournament.
That's
Well,
right.
we're really thinking three, maybe
Yep.
four, and
Yep. That's
realistically,
right.
not just a like a hope and a dream that it might happen. I mean,
Yep.
you might see Mike, me, and another person or two at the
Yep.
tournament, just with the number of people that are going to be there. So
Yep.
it'll
Yep.
be interesting.
It will
Yeah,
be.
and we're to the regional. I know Mike's got a busy week this week, so we're planning on having some roundups of
Yep.
the softball games this week, and I think we'll do that with baseball too. I know we have like
Sure.
4 or 5 baseball teams decided in the
Yes,
district
we do.
finals. So
Absolutely. Yeah, we sure do. And a lot of those district championship games in baseball, because baseball's a week behind softball. It's a district week for baseball, the regional week for softball. So we've got a bunch of teams playing this week on Wednesday for district titles in baseball. So good luck to all of them. I think they've got a lot of staying power too.
and props to the baseball teams too. They're not as I mean we see so many girls softball teams like at number 1 or number 2 the whole week. You
Right?
might not see the baseball teams up that high, but they're solid. They're there.
They
You
are.
got 5 teams that can make regionals where you have 4 softball teams. So
Right.
don't sleep on the baseball teams. I mean, they may not be at the top of the state, but look at it in basketball. I mean, we had teams that
Yep.
you look at Ursuline. Ursuline made the state
Yep.
finals in basketball. So
Sure did.
don't
Yep.
be shocked if we see state baseball teams too. I mean,
Right.
let's be honest, they'll probably be shocked if we don't see state softball teams,
Yeah.
but I think state baseball has a chance to make it that far in our area too.
The Mahoning Valley area always has been. It's great for softball and baseball. Really good. Really some exciting teams to watch.
Well, and I was told by the Ursuline basketball coach, wait to see the baseball team. I know they haven't been among the best, but they beat our number 1
That's
baseball
right.
team in Poland. So
Yep.
don't be surprised if a baseball team gets far. I mean,
Yep.
you're
Yep.
going to see some good things going on there, and it's exciting to see. So,
Yeah.
very good. Couple of things that we've got going on. Wanted to talk a little bit about Youngstown State.
Mhm.
Again, we haven't had as much coverage about baseball and softball. Congratulations to a lot of good players in baseball, softball, and track.
Mhm.
But wanted to bring up football. I know football is kind of coming up, and there's some stories that are breaking this week.
Yeah.
Youngstown State, they had early ranking. Again, kind of a way too early ranking. We'll know more once we get to the fall about where Youngstown State sits. But they're 23rd, and that's kind of about where they were at the end of last year. So it sounds like some of your, the media out there and everything, they still look at Youngstown State as a good bet this year, even with some of the changes they've had, and players that are coming and going.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, without question. Doug Phillips has done a great job with that program. He's elevated that program every year, where obviously they're obviously in the conversation every year as far as the top teams in the nation. So, and that the Missouri Valley Conference in football is really good. Oh my goodness, week in and week out, man, you got to bring it in that conference. So, and then when you get through that conference play, you're pretty well positioned for a decent run in the playoffs.
Yeah, let me mention this, and you just said this, but the story Chris of Youngstown State Sports was talking about. Look at their schedule. I mean, the non-conference, they've got what they call a money game. Youngstown State goes to Pittsburgh, but Youngstown State's beaten Pittsburgh in the past, and I don't think Pittsburgh is going to be highly regarded. So you never know what might happen there, but. It's going to be a tough game, obviously. They go to Heinz or Acrisure Stadium now to play Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But look at the schedule.
I think they play Villanova again, the team that they lost to in the playoffs. I believe they've got Villanova. Is it week 1 or week 2, Chris? I think.
Well, 5 of the top 9 teams in the FCS preseason poll, and this is done for Hero Sports, they play. I mean, they play South Dakota State, who's number 1.
Yeah.
South Dakota's number 5.
Yeah.
Villanova, who's 6, and Southern Illinois, who is 9. Okay, I apologize. 4 of the top 9 teams they play, which is still amazing when you look at it.
Yep.
And they also play Illinois State, and as you said, we're playing Pittsburgh. So you've got 5 top 25 teams, and you've got a ACC member on your schedule. So it's going to be tough. I guess my request to the people picking the playoffs is, good job in picking Youngstown State as the at-large last year. Looking at their schedule's going to be tough too. And for Youngstown State, let's win some of those games they lost last year.
Yeah.
But be mindful to the playoff pickers that, hey, schedule matters.
It does. They play an awesome schedule, and hopefully the people, I'm sure they are very knowledgeable that pick the playoff teams, but they'll see that, that they've played one of the best schedules in the country for that size college football.
Well, it was concerned 2 years ago because remember, they had a team that should have made it. They didn't respect the schedule enough, but last year, they rectified the issue. So we'll see what happens. And again, Villanova, it's interesting. The season ended last year at Villanova. They kind of go back there to open it up next year, which is unusual, especially for a non-conference opponent.
It's amazing how that worked out because those schedules are set a few years in advance. It's just the way it worked out.
And the key players are going to be different. It's not going to be the same team for Youngstown State or Villanova. But I'm kind of wondering if there's a little revenge in the mind of kids that played there last year. They're going back this year.
Right. There you go. Yep.
So definitely. Another note, it's exciting. We have a couple of Youngstown State graduates that are in the NFL. Most notably last year, we talked a lot about Jaleel McLaughlin. They kind of went from just a free agent signee, undrafted guy, and he ended up becoming the 3rd running back for Denver this year.
Right.
We've got another guy. We've got the receiver, Bryce Oliver, who's in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of invitations to training camps. Again, you never know. But one guy got signed. Ryan Johnson, who was a guard for Youngstown State last year, he got signed to undrafted free agent contract by the Patriots recently. He impressed during training camp, and they said, hey, you're invited. Now we're signing you. So congratulations to them. We'll see what happens.
Yep. And I tell you what, over the decades, YSU guys have done pretty darn well in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. And I've had some readers ask me, I know a notable guy that was in a camp was Mitch Davidson, who got invited to 49ers camp.
Yeah.
I've been looking at Twitter. I haven't seen any particulars on what he looked like, the impress or not. Mm-hmm. But again, even if Mitch Davidson doesn't make the 49ers, this opens the door. I mean, other teams are looking at him. Yep. Even look at the UFL or other stuff. I mean, I think there's going to be opportunities for him down the road, even if it's not in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I always wonder how that worked. A quick note about the Steelers. It was funny. The Steelers signed a quarterback, John David Rice. He's from Central Florida. And it's funny. Steelers told him he was a guy that he's fast enough to play receiver too. but the Steelers said they want him at quarterback, and you always wonder what the mindset is. Being an invitee, you're excited to be there and everything, but
Yep.
sometimes when you're at a team that's pretty set in quarterback, and the Steelers are
Right.
set right now, it's
Yep.
like, what do you do? How do you get ahead
Yeah.
of somebody? So it's
Yeah.
always fascinating to see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll
Well,
have to
that's
have
an area of strength. They've gone from an area that maybe had a question mark last year to an area of strength, in my opinion.
maybe we could invite Mitch on sometime. I'd love to talk to him and see how
There
it
you go.
was.
Yep.
Obviously San Francisco, you look at them, he's probably not knocking off, Brock Purdy, but, it'd be interesting to see what do you hear when you go into a situation like that,
Yeah.
like, do you say, hey, if I play really well, do I get to come back or whatever the case might be?
Yeah. Sure.
So, all right. Couple of regional notes I wanted to mention before we conclude. And bear with me just for a second. Sorry, I lost my notes as soon as I said that. No,
Well,
my
I know
luck.
we were going to talk about the Guardians a little bit. Boy, what a great story that is, Chris. I mean,
Yeah.
you think about it, they have one of the lowest payrolls in Major League Baseball, and they're leading their division. And I know the national pundits aren't giving them a whole lot of credit yet, but they're doing a great job. They're winning a lot of. They've won a lot of walk-off games. They're winning a lot of games in the ninth inning. They are a fun team to watch. I think it's a team that Cleveland can watch this team grow together because it's a pretty young team, and they've overcome a lot because they've lost a lot of their pitching to injuries early on, and they just find a way to get it done and keep winning.
Well, and they had a tough weekend. And again, during a 162 game season, you're going to have games where you don't look good. But, I passed on a story. It was the first time they played the Mets. Lindor made his return to Cleveland.
Yeah.
They won that game. They swept the Mets.
Right.
They swept the Twins.
Yep.
And those are the games you got to win, too. Yeah, you got to look good against the good teams.
Yep.
But sometimes the teams that are struggling this year, you look good against. And, they're winning the games they should. I also think, too, they had a noble manager in Terry Francona, one of the better known managers in baseball. Francona retires. I know they were linked to a lot of higher paid managers that didn't work out. But, props to Stephen Vogt, the new manager. I mean, he came from the A's. He was just retired. I mean, he was a coach for 1 year.
Yeah.
And, there was always, sometimes for some reason, like these old veteran catchers tend to do well as managers.
Right. Especially with pitching staff. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, they took a chance with me. They didn't know if it was going to be good or not. And so far, it's looking pretty good.
He's done a great job. They're aggressive. The Guardians are aggressive. And like I said, they're fun to watch, too. So it'll be anxious to see how that division plays out because, as good as the Guardians are playing, Kansas City's only a game and a half behind them right now. And they've been kind of a surprise, too. Minnesota's been a little bit of a disappointment. They're suddenly 6.5 games out. And I think that was the team before the season started for that division. Everybody was picking to win it. Well, right now they're in third. The Guardians just swept them. So it's going to be fun to follow that division, through the end of the spring and the summer into the fall and into the playoffs to see how it all shakes out.
And the longer the season goes, I mean, I remember a lot of baseball seasons where a team that wasn't projected to be that great wins a ton, and then you're like, well, once the dog days of summer hit, they're going to fall off. Well, we haven't hit those dog days yet, but the Guardians have shown no sign of slowing down yet. So, sometimes you say, well, is it just a hot start or is it a trend? And it's getting to be more of a trend now, not just a quick hot start.
Yeah, we're past the 1/4 way mark of the season, I believe. So that's when you start to get a better gauge of how teams are going. And they're hanging in there.
Yeah, well, the Guardians have been a good story. The Cavs, they won the series, which is good, better than we were last year. But Boston dispatched them. They got left with a lot of, I don't know. It's going to be a weird offseason for the Cavs. I don't know. Did it bug you, Mike, that Donovan Mitchell didn't play the last 2 games?
I know a lot of the national pundits said basically what you just did. That you'd think you'd find a way to play in a game like that, but maybe it was just the injury was just too much at that time to be back out on the court. But it's going to be a really interesting offseason for the Cavs. I can't tell you which way it's going to go. Will Donovan Mitchell be back next year? Who knows? If he goes or if he stays, will some of the other guys be back? So Garland would be one of them. Would he be back? So, I think what's happened is the Cavs have gotten to a certain level, and I think they're kind of stuck there. So I think they're going to have to be creative. They're going to have to keep their core players together, the guys they think that can take them to the next level, and then they're going to have to augment that with some key additions. So it's going to be a really interesting offseason for the Cavaliers. I can't tell you when they go back to practice in the fall. I can't tell you who's going to be on that team right now because they could completely shake it up. Or if Mitchell stays, maybe they'll just add a few guys and try and take a look at some of their weaknesses that they can shore up that might take them to the next level.
Well, and I've heard people be yelled at online for saying this, so I'm going to say this, and be nice to me online if you want to yell or something. I like the guys that the Cavs have right now. I think when you look at their center position, yeah, it's nice to have Evan Mobley as a power forward, but in essence, him and Jarrett Allen are playing the same spot.
Right.
So this isn't a criticism of Mobley or Allen. It almost sounds like you've got two guys that do kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's kind of fun to say, well, you got twin towers, you play them together. Well, I remember, and man, I'm dating myself now, but as a little kid, remember watching like twin towers used to be a big thing in the NBA. Like,
Oh yeah.
I remember like Elijah Wan and what was it, Ralph Sampson and stuff
Right.
like that with the Rockets.
Yep.
You just don't see that much anymore.
It's a 3-point shooting league now. Yep.
Yeah, and you can sit there and say, well, what if you got really good guys? Well, I think Jarrett Allen and Mobley are good, but there's a reason why there's not many other teams that have twin towers. It's just
Right.
as you said, it's a 3-point shooting league.
Yep.
Here's the other thing. I think Donovan Mitchell's a great athlete. I'll be honest with you. I was shocked when I first heard he was like 6'2", 6'3". I just assumed 6'1", I think actually.
Mm-hmm.
I just assumed Mitchell was like a 6'6", 6'7" guy.
Yeah.
But when you have Donovan Mitchell, he's not a point guard, but he's more of a ball guy. You want to have the
right. He's he's basketball dominant. Yeah, without question. Yep.
Yeah, and again, this isn't a criticism about Mitchell. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Well, you've got Darius Garland, who's a good player, but Darius Garland kind of plays the same way. And yet, Mitchell is athletic enough to guard a bigger guy. I don't think necessarily you need a bigger two just to guard people.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have like 2 6'1" guys in the back court, it just doesn't work. I mean, look back before they got Mitchell, you had Colin Sexton. Now, obviously, Mitchell's a much better athlete than Colin Sexton was, but you had two little guys in the back court when they tried to play Sexton and Garland together.
Right. Yeah.
It just isn't working. And from what I'm hearing, I think they're willing to give Mitchell the max, and Mitchell sounds like he's interested in accepting it. Yeah. But I think there's other questions that are going to come up, like what does Mitchell think about having a Twin Towers?
Right.
J.B. Bickerstaff, I don't think he's a bad coach, but he's a younger guy, and there's been some times where things seem to be a little bit much for him. Is he the guy to take the next level? So it's not anybody in particular to blame. It's just the team roster makeup now seems a little bit redundant. They got two really good point guards and two really good centers right now.
Yep. Like I said, I think it'll be an interesting offseason. I think I definitely see them making moves. I mean, because they're stuck at a level, and to get to the next level, they're going to have to be creative and get rid of, maybe like you said, you might have to weaken yourself at one position to get stronger at another. Because like you said, they've got two centers and two guards that are basically the same play, and they're going to have to do something about that. And hopefully they can add the right pieces that'll take them to the next level.
Well, I'll say this again, and before I make my wild prediction, it's probably not going to happen for a multitude of reasons. But I look back at LeBron James. The first time he was in Cleveland, it was amazing. They won the draft lottery. He's at home. He's a young guy. We build up with him. The second time, I think LeBron wanted to try to bring a championship back to Cleveland.
Yeah.
I know there was some ill will between him and Dan Gilbert, but he kind of got over that to do that.
Yeah.
And I think for a while he wanted to go to LA. I think he's very business oriented. I think LA is not just about the Lakers, but it's about business.
Right.
But I think he just assumed that, yeah, they did win a title with the COVID shortened, what do they call it, the lock-in games or whatever.
Yeah.
But the Lakers have kind of gotten to the point where they're good enough to be a playoff team. They're not competing for a title.
Right. That's right.
The East, I'll tell you, I think it's gettable. Indiana's a good team, but Indiana beat a really depleted New York team. I know Boston's playing out of this world right now, but I don't see anybody else in the East that's dominant.
Right.
I can see LeBron maybe looking at Cleveland for the third time, not just say, hey, let's win a title, but just maybe saying, look, this might be my best chance right now.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
If I had to bet, I'd bet against that. But it is interesting. The one position that the Cavs really could use is LeBron's position. That would,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. That definitely would take them to the next level and then some. So who knows what will happen? What goes on behind the NBA executives' closed doors, and trade possibilities and free agent signings and things like that.
Well, I think 5% chance it happens at max. And I'm being generous when I say 5%.
Right. Yeah.
But I kind of look at it. It was interesting. LeBron has a little bit of standoff going for the Lakers, but you saw how he went to Game 4.
Yeah.
And no one knew why he did that. And he probably was just trying to send a message to Lakers. But if you really look at it, like you said, the Cavs don't have a number 3 position right now.
Nope.
And you say, and I know like the Cavs have been murdered if they tried to trade LeBron before. I know Lakers are probably in the same situation, but the Lakers are stuck too.
They are.
They're going to be a playoff team. They're not going to win a
That's right.
NBA title with what they have.
That's right.
So, just think about this. If I'm the Lakers, you could take a Darius Garland, you could take a Jarrett Allen, and that might match up salaries. Maybe you have to give up another guy or whatever.
Right.
That could match salaries to get a deal like that done.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? Well, that would certainly be wow. That would hit it out of the park in the offseason for the Cavs if they could pull something like that off. Who knows? Like I said, what's going on behind closed NBA doors? But that would be really, really, boy. You talk about igniting the fan base. Woo, man. Then we start legitimately talk about winning an NBA title or having a chance to anyway.
Well, and if you get a deal like that, and maybe you have to throw in like an Isaac Okoro to make the salaries match.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the Lakers get a restart. I don't think they're in a much better position with the guys they have, but you've got a younger star in Garland that you can build around. And you got Jarrett Allen, which I wouldn't call a star, but he's a good big inside.
Yes.
And then if you look at the Cavs, you talk about big threes. Now your big three becomes Mitchell, LeBron, and Evan Mobley.
Yeah, not too bad.
Which, I mean, here's something we could talk about for an hour one day. Would you rather have that big three or the big three of Kyrie or Kevin Love? I mean, that was a good big three, but I think Mitchell and Evan Mobley could, match up with those.
And the other thing too is, man, you couldn't guard just one guy. When you have a Mitchell and LeBron, oh my goodness, wow, pick your poison.
Well, and here's the other thing. Kevin Love was a good rebounder, but Kevin Love really was never known as a defensive star.
Right. Yeah.
And Chris Bosh, he could score, but Bosh wasn't really a big inside player. Man, Evan Mobley, he's still picking up his inside game, but that defensive presence inside. We've never seen that on a big three with LeBron. I mean, he didn't have that in Miami with Bosh. Yeah. He definitely didn't have that in Cleveland. And you technically, with Mitchell and him, you're kind of duplicating positions if you have a stretch four, which Love and Bosh were.
Right.
Again, 5% chance it happens, but there might be
something to think about, though, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah. And I think what happens, and you're exactly right, you've got a situation where you're like, this team, the way it's constructed, doesn't work. And there aren't other probably more realistic trade options out there.
No.
But does that make you a better team? Like, I look at, there was a trade option I heard, possibly Garland to New Orleans for Brandon Ingram.
Yeah.
Ingram's a number 3. He's definitely a poor man's LeBron. He's no LeBron James. That could be something that happens.
Right.
But does that make Cleveland better? I don't know. I mean, you might be in a better position just keeping who you've got more to make a deal like that.
Well, the
So,
other thing too, I think a lot's going to bear where Bronny goes in the NBA draft. I think that's going to carry a lot of weight where LeBron goes. So we'll see how that plays out.
well, here's what I would do. I mean, Bronny
Yeah,
isn't
I know.
top draft pick. He's had a really good combine. And you say, well, didn't he do bad at USC? Well, think about it. He, in essence, had a heart issue. I mean, I went for a heart issue.
Absolutely.
You don't see me out there playing NBA basketball.
No.
I've heard a rumor saying, look, he's not LeBron James. I mean, there's a definite difference there.
Nobody is.
But he's not the guy that you saw in USC because last year he tried playing for a heart condition.
Yeah, right. Yep.
And they're saying, I mean, he wasn't dominating in the combine, but he was looking pretty good at the combine.
Yep.
They're saying, look, and, if I'm sitting there on the Cavs, even if LeBron doesn't come back, and in all likelihood, it would have to be like a sign trade option to get him to come unless LeBron's willing to play for nothing.
Yeah.
But, man, I picked Bronny at 20, and even if you don't get LeBron back, okay, Bronny's from the area. He played at St. V for a while. Why not? And even if it doesn't bring LeBron back, you're developing a good young player that probably would be just as good as anybody else you can get at 20.
Yeah, I'll guarantee you there's a lot of conversations going on in NBA offices right now. It's like, hey, do we want to take a look at this? So I'm sure he's going to attract a lot of interest in the upcoming draft.
Well, and I'll tell you something too. You hate to say this, and executives aren't going to admit that if they come on a podcast like this. Selling tickets matters.
Yep.
Even without LeBron, I think you sell some tickets. Definitely not as many as you would if you had LeBron.
Yeah.
I think Brian James would sell you tickets. Even if, and I'm not saying Bronny would come to the Cavs and start right away. He might be a guy as a bench warmer that maybe play at the end of the game. I think you sell tickets to you draft Bronny James. And, the NBA prints money. I mean, they're kind of like the NFL. But, man, if I'm a small market team like Cleveland, I look at that even without LeBron, to be honest with you.
Sure. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. We'll know within the next, month and a half, 2 months? Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And in all likelihood, the Lakers, they can offer LeBron more than anybody else would. And if you look at it, LeBron probably has 2 or 3 years left.
Yeah.
And if you can get more money from your current team, and again, LeBron's got a lot of business interest in LA. That's why I know it bothers him that they're not winning a lot. But the fact he's at a city that helps him out business-wise makes it where he's not, tearing down doors to get out of there. Right? So don't be surprised if LeBron goes to LA. But I don't know. I'm starting to feel like it did before LeBron came back to Cleveland the first time. It sounds ridiculous, but the more you think of it, you think this might actually make a little bit of sense. So,
well, and this team is set to win at a big-time level if they would get him. I mean, I think they're good enough at the other positions. Unlike the other 2 times, this team is set up to win right away if he would do something like that. So, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I mean, LeBron had that streak of 6 straight NBA Finals appearances, and the fact that he hasn't been in recent years, this doesn't mean he's a bad player. Yeah. I think he's getting a little older for one, but I think when he decided to go out west, and I get it, with LA and everything, but man, he had to have known that the path to the finals was just getting way harder when he went to the West.
Yeah.
You could make an argument, and I think LeBron doesn't uproot his family. That's why I think it would either be LA or Cleveland. I don't think he goes anywhere else. But maybe an argument you could make is unless there's some other huge deals that bring in more talent from the East. What about New York? Because New York's in a situation where everyone got hurt. That's why they lost.
Yep, that's right.
New York's probably at least the second best team in the East if everyone stayed healthy.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yep.
That would be depressing seeing LeBron in New York, but
my goodness, wow. Well, that would be
reporting what makes sense. I'll put it that way. Not what I want to see happen.
It's going to be an interesting offseason, to say the least.
Well, man, lots of fun. We went over, but man, anytime you talk about LeBron going to Cleveland, we lose our minds. It's good to figure out. Well, Mike, as always, thanks for your time. Again, thanks to everyone who listens. Let us know if you have any questions or thoughts or ideas. Expect to see some regional coverage coming up later this week. And best of luck to our Mahoning Valley teams and regionals and districts. Hey, let's see some more teams in the state. We'll love to see that.
Yep.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.